Midwich suffered a bizarre blackout that left childbearing women pregnant, but the mystery deepens as it becomes increasingly obvious that the children are uncannily special. The peace Midwich experienced for 2 years is broken when Sunny, a child also conceived during the blackout but was separated from the rest, finally reunites with them. Unfortunately, Sunny's arrival results in her mother Amrita's death, the revelation of the children's hive mind, and the ostracization of Dr. Susanna, the therapist whom the government commissioned to guide the mothers. Eventually, unrest, distrust, and suspicions about the children and each other only grows amongst Midwich's townsfolk. Zoe, having had enough of being isolated and silenced by the powers that be regarding the bizarre occurrences in their town and its menacing blackout children, is determined to publicly divulge Midwich's secrets in a memoir. Her daughter Hannah interrupts her writing, so Zoe lies about what she's doing. Zoe's partner, Sam, who's a school teacher, checks the draft Zoe wrote. After falling prey to the children's successful frame-up, Susanna lives alone with only the company of her vices. The next day, Zoe prints the draft and hides it under a pile of books. During the weekly counseling session, Geraldine is presiding in Susanna's stead. The mothers share how warm and cooperative the children have become, especially Rachel, whose participation in the project strains her marriage. Taking drastic measures, Zoe intercepts Bryony, a higher-up in the home office, and hands her an envelope before quickly walking away. The investigation on Amrita's death draws to a close as Bernard, another home office superior, shows Bryony and Paul the toxicology report. He concludes that the woman was intoxicated, dropped off Sunny, then proceeded to stumble into the wrong vehicle, leading to her demise. Because this is an isolated incident, Bernard instructs them to keep it under wraps, especially from Susanna, who's now barred from the project. Bryony shows Bernard Zoe's memoir draft and says the woman demands a meeting, otherwise she'll publish it. Cassie walks her daughter Evie home when Susanna calls, which she promptly declines. Meanwhile, Nathan sulks about his mother Jody's nose ring, telling Detective Chief Inspector Paul he'll never get used to the appearance. In her home, Susanna receives an email from Earth Monitor encouraging her to continue her quest for the truth. A link in the email leads to a page containing one word: Nordos. Later that evening, Paul smokes outside as Jody sits beside him, asking when they'll tell Nathan about their relationship. Paul asks to wait for some time, considering that he's dating his deceased wife's sister. During breakfast, Zoe learns the home office is interested in meeting. When Hannah walks in, Sam and Zoe pretend nothing's happening, making her suspicious. As she heads out, Zoe meets Sarah and Sunny. Despite Sunny being Amrita's daughter, who was Sarah's husband's former paramour, Sarah's taken a liking to the child. In Paul's home, Jody screams, so Paul runs to find her. In the bedroom, Jody says Nathan made her pull out her nose ring, causing it to bleed. Paul confronts Nathan, but the boy says it's what Paul wants, which is why he did it. Zoe meets with Bryony and Bernard, saying she and Sam want to leave, but the children won't let Sam leave. Bernard brings up the NDA Zoe signed, but she threatens with a spare copy of her memoir. Zoe assures them she just wants to abandon the project, and will destroy all copies of the memoir if they grant her demand. After the incident with Nathan, Paul visits Susanna and reveals Amrita's fate. Regretfully, Paul wishes he listened to Susanna now that he realizes the higher-ups know more than they're letting on. While leading the children through the forest, Sam receives Zoe's text saying Bernard agreed to their escape. He's elated, but snaps to his senses when the children are looking at poisonous berries, telling them to stay away from the bush. As she makes her way home, Zoe suddenly touches her stomach and smiles as she looks down at it. Meanwhile, Susanna plays Paul the glitchy recording of her conversation with Nathan about Amrita and shows him the Nordosk email. Dumbfounded, Paul requests a copy of the audio file. Before he leaves, Susanna confesses she shouldn't have hidden what happened to Cassie, so Paul advises Susanna to just be honest with her daughter. At the police station, Paul discreetly requests an audio cleanup on the file, where he hears a chorus of children screaming in Russian and the whispered word Nordosk. Hannah arrives home and senses her mother's up to something. She pesters Zoe from outside the bathroom, where the woman waits for the results of a pregnancy test. Later, Zoe tells Sam about the plan to ditch Hannah at the picnic and skipping town. As Paul leaves for work, Jody begs him to return home early as she doesn't want to be alone with Nathan, as Nathan eavesdrops by the stairs. While his parents are fighting about the picnic, Joe steps outside. He watches Zoe check on the memoir draft atop the closet, and because the children know each other's thoughts, Hannah heads upstairs and stares at the top of the closet. Elsewhere, Cassie contacts her dealer for illicit substances when the doorbell rings. Susanna stands outside the door, wanting to speak with her. Although initially hesitant, Susanna's concern for her injuries changes her mind. Susanna suggests asking Nora to take Evie to the picnic instead. As Sam walks Hannah to the picnic, she ominously accuses her parents of not telling her something. After Sam denies her claim, she calls him a bad liar. To continue his investigation, Paul hides behind the fire exit near Bryony's office, waiting for a chance to slip through. At the picnic, Sam tells the other parents that Zoe is under the weather, and Hannah runs off to play with the other kids. When Nora arrives with Evie and her daughter Olive, the children all turn and glare directly at Sam. He texts texts Zoe, saying the children know they're leaving. Susanna confesses to Cassie that when she had her, she was in a dark place in life. She gave Cassie up to foster parents for a year and almost had her adopted, but fortunately, Susanna received professional help and reclaimed her. Her shame prevented her from telling Cassie, but she assures her daughter she's not unwell right now. Zoe texts Sam it's time for them to leave. Concurrently, the children request permission to walk in the woods, giving Sam the opportunity to sneak away. However, from the forest's fringe, the children watch Sam leave. Susanna tells Cassie that the children are controlling and punishing their parents for wrong behavior. Though Cassie refuses to believe the children can hurt anyone, Susanna points out her daughter's injured hand. Rain pours on the picnic and everyone scrambles to gather their things and head home. In the office, Briony rushes out, and Paul slinks in and scours her files. He finds a folder addressed to Bernard. Sam arrives home, panicking, but Zoe snaps him out of it by revealing her pregnancy, confident the baby is his. The couple share a brief, tender moment. With the picnic cut short, Jody calls Paul, afraid of being alone with Nathan. Oddly, Nathan apologizes for hurting her and they share a hug. In the office, Paul opens the folder and reads about the Russian town Nordosk. The town also hosted similar children conceived similarly to those in Midwich, but then learns none of them survived for very long. Zoe and Sam are rushing to leave, but Zoe finds the envelope missing. Meanwhile, Evie calmly recounts to Cassie what happened at the picnic, but when she learns Susanna stopped by, she gets angry. Susanna shows herself to her granddaughter, wanting to help, but Evie rebuffs her advances and calls it too late. Back in Sam's home, he notices movements outside, so he cautiously checks the garden shed and finds nothing. Suddenly, Joe stares eerily at Sam, before forcing the man to grab a herbicide spray bottle and threatens to make him use it on himself. Zoe searches for Sam downstairs, but when she turns around, she's startled by what she sees. As electricity crackles, Evie admits they're stopping Zoe from taking away Sam, but her attention shifts to Susanna when she brings up Nordosk. In the office, Paul confronts Briony about withholding her knowledge of Nordosk, knowingly manipulating the situation, and her complicity in Amrita's death. Regrettably, Briony claims she's just following orders. Paul receives Cassie's call that Zoe's in danger. Before leaving, he tells Briony he wants to know everything. Meanwhile, Evie reveals they chose Earth to be their home, but they weren't welcome in Nordosk. In Zoe's home, Hannah approaches her hypnotized mother who admits her plans of escape and pregnancy, but Hannah refuses to let it happen. Elsewhere, Nathan lies about being full from the picnic and wants to head upstairs, but he instead leaves the house. Concurrently, Evie recounts that the Russians trapped them in their classrooms, helpless when the planes arrived to bomb the school. While Hannah pours the poisonous berries onto Zoe's hand, Paul arrives but is unable to open the front door. When he tries breaking the window with a flower pot, Nathan stops him and uses his powers to cause the man to collapse on the ground. As vengeance for Nordosk, Evie says the children are stronger and able to defend themselves now, determined not to repeat their past mistakes. In the living room, Hannah makes Zoe bring the berries up to her mouth. Susanna kneels close to Evie and proposes coexistence is possible, but only if they won't hurt Zoe. If the children agree, humans will love them, but if anything goes wrong, Susanna will bear the blame. As the children collectively agree to the decision, Hannah slaps the berries out of Zoe's hand and hugs her. As Sam rushes in, Hannah expresses her excitement for her baby sister. Evie touches Susanna's chest and reminds her that a promise is forever, as the older woman has a scared look on her face. For 2 years, the promise worked, and despite only 5 years since being born, the children look twice their age. Because of this development, Bernard proposes performing further tests on them at a military base. Susanna is convinced the children won't agree to advanced testing, but is surprised to learn the children themselves ask to know what lies beyond the town limits. Joe crouches close to David, his older brother who hates staying with their father. Instead, David wishes he was like Joe. Sam and Zoe are joyfully feeding Ellie, when Hannah reminds Sam they're late for school. Then, they hear a commotion over at the neighbor's house. Outside, Curtis yells at David to get into the van. Hannah grows angry as she watches from the window, but Zoe reminds her Curtis doesn't represent the best of humans. As Jody leads a painting class, she encourages the children to express their individualism because their paintings are similar. When she passes by Nathan, he's upset because Paul said they'll have some tests at Ward 300. While chaperoning Evie, Susanna's uncomfortable about the testing, as it wasn't her idea, but Evie assures her it's fine. However, she remains unsettled throughout the ride. In the trailer home, Curtis finds David playing by himself. He asks Curtis why they don't live at home anymore, but Curtis says David already knows why. While discussing colonialism, Sam emphasizes that the children are consciously choosing to coexist with the humans, but his lighthearted comment yields no positive response. At the military base, Bernard welcomes Evie and Nathan to Winthrop. The two consent to the test, but Bernard Bernard bars Paul and Susanna from entering further. Meanwhile, David walks to a closed fence surrounding the school the children are attending, but the gate is closed. At the base, Susanna waits impatiently for the testing to finish, wondering what Bernard plans to do. Paul confesses he also has no idea. While the children play chess, Sam leaves to refill his mug, but crackling electricity alarms him, and when he returns, the classroom is empty. At Winthrop, Evie and Nathan use their power to make everyone in the facility lose consciousness. As Sam tries checking an underground cellar, he collapses by the stairwell. The electric force shorts the gate, letting David walk into the school grounds. He descends the stairs and spots the children standing in a circle under flickering lights, spying on them as they gain control over Winthorpe's soldiers. Joe notices David, who scampers away and leaves his toy behind. Sam wakes and sees David running across the field. Susanna and Paul also wake after hearing a gunshot. Turns out the children control the soldiers to shoot their comrade. Susanna knows something's wrong, but she sees Nathan and Evie being escorted back to the car. When Curtis returns to the cabin, he searches frantically for David. At their home, Sam's picking up scattered toys in the yard when Rachel finds David standing dazed with clouded eyes. Panicked, Rachel worries over her catatonic son. Later, Curtis manages to visit David at the hospital, but Rachel shoves him back, blaming him for being neglectful. Susanna tries helping out by asking David questions, but he only faintly mutters the word school. Hours before, some of the children surrounded David in the woods and wiped his memory clean. On the ride back home, Paul thinks Curtis is responsible, but Susanna thinks the children are lying about Winthrop. Paul advises her to appear friendly to avoid suspicions, while he remains silent about the events. Later, Paul speaks to Jody and admits, in hushed tones, they were at a military base. Nathan interrupts, secretly clutching a sharp object, and tells them he doesn't want to leave. Seeing David running away haunts Sam in his sleep, and in the morning, he decides to check the stairwell. There, he finds David's toy, which he later shows Zoe. She urges him to hide it, as their lives with Ellie are already peaceful. At the hospital, Rachel keeps watch over David, but when she leaves to get water, she overhears Bernard reminding Joe that letting David live jeopardizes the project. Realizing what's happening, a horrified Rachel hurriedly leaves the hospital with David. Susanna informs Earth Monitor via email that David might have seen something. Suddenly, she receives a call from Rachel, who tells her that she and David are on their way to her, followed by a vague warning of who's behind what happened to her son. The children join forces to stop Rachel. Evie and Hannah leave to intercept Rachel's car as she drives to Susanna's. When Rachel sees them, she screeches to a halt, but the children have something sinister planned. They activate Rachel's car and crash it against a steel rod, ending her life. The next morning, Bernard gathers them in a meeting and claims the children no longer feel safe in Midwich. Cassie defends them for acting in self-defense after Rachel tried running them over. Hannah comments the children didn't break the truce Susanna negotiated, drawing Susanna to wonder if the children think they're enemies. Nora and Jane believe they've gone too far, with Jane blaming Susanna for letting them believe the children are trustworthy. Bernard informs them that the children will depart from Midwich, earning Cassie's protests, but when she asks Evie to say she'll stay, Evie remains silent. Heartbroken, Cassie leaves and Susanna follows her. Outside, Susanna claims she was deceived too, but when Cassie learns she took Evie to Winthrop, Cassie leaves, disappointed. At Ward 300, Paul informs Bernard that the judge denied Curtis's detention. To keep David safe, Bernard wants David confined inside the hospital under their watch. Later, Evie encourages Susanna to talk to Cassie and get her to understand why they need to leave Midwich. To defend their decision to leave, Evie reminds her that they had no choice after Midwich frowned upon their self-defense tactic. Susanna wonders why Rachel would want to hurt them, and is disappointed because she thought she knew her granddaughter. Though Evie claims she has no individual personality and the group share their thoughts, Susanna notes she likes an ice cream flavor that the others don't. Susanna had hoped that coexisting with humans would teach the children to enjoy their differences, as it makes life meaningful. But they disagree with the sentiment as they view differences as the root of problems. When Susanna says Cassie will miss her, Evie smiles coldly, knowing no one will miss them. Sam watches Paul drive Curtis home. Behind him, Hannah asks what he and Zoe were discussing before she left. Sam lies that it was about Ellie's new nursery. As Curtis paces his house, Paul reminds him to do as he says if he wants to live with David again. Paul then gives Curtis space to grieve his family. Bothered, Sam intercepts Paul and hands him David's toy. That night, Susanna receives a call about the children's departure and hurriedly leaves. She promises Cassie she'll reveal more about Rachel and Evie when she returns by 10 p.m. Instead of heading to the hospital, Susanna meets Paul outside the school, where they investigate the cellar where David's toy was found. Inside, they find a singed circle, and Susanna realizes why David kept repeating the word school. Suddenly, electricity crackles, and Paul decides to check it out alone. He finds two children standing outside and tells them he was checking where David's toy was found. They demand the keys, and when Paul refuses, they make him toss them over. When Paul says he's alone, the children lock the cellar, leaving Susanna inside. They then order Paul to come with them. At Susanna's house, Evie and Joe leave, and Cassie yells at them to come back while crying in the rain. In the school, the children tell Paul to stay with Nathan for the night and to stay inside their house. Paul questions what they'll do after leaving Midwich, but is ignored. Paul drives with Nathan, but he's determined to rescue Susanna. Nathan warns him he can't do that as the children will know he's helping Paul. That's when the man notices the barbed wire in Nathan's hand, which he uses to hurt himself. The pain prevents the other children from listening to his thoughts. At home, Cassie sits in the bathroom holding a sachet of illicit substances. Meanwhile, Susanna sits alone in the cellar when the lights switch on, and she hears footsteps approaching. She sees Bernard check the room, but before he locks the door behind him, Susanna sees his eyes shimmer faintly, the same way the blackout children's eyes do.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.